What's up, y'all? My name is T. Shaw, and this is Brewin Black Podcast, where the contents we serve you is authentic, vulnerable, and relatable. That means we serve you with no cream and no sugar.
I guess I like my coffee black.
What's up, everyone? This is Scholar P, pronouns he, him, his.
And it's your boy T. Shaw, pronouns he, him, his.
And this is Brewin Black, giving you the latest and greatest in black news and entertainment for our millennials, our intellectuals, and those who like their news like we like our coffee. Black. Yo, T, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, bro. I'm feeling good. I'm coming off my birthday weekend
Yes, sir.
my week. And yeah, like I just feel good, bro. I feel good. Like I feel energized. My best friend got to come into town. I got to see Elda. It was such a great surprise. Shout out to Elda. Shout out to my girlfriend Allie. Shout out to Julius. They put on just a dope like weekend of events, and like I just feel so like loved more than anything, just like loved. So yeah, bro, like it was a great week. And I've also just been watching like I don't know if you checked out the Kanye documentary, but it just came out. So I've just been diving into that and knowing that like he's kind of active right now with Donda too. There's been a lot of controversy with him doing the Kim stuff, but also like Donda 2 coming out. I think it's so interesting to see like his origin story right now through like the Netflix documentary. And it just had me thinking a lot about like what qualities does it take for someone to be successful, and like thinking about how we're 2 years into the podcast and we're hoping to break through that like glass ceiling, that next level. These were just like kind of like things I've been thinking of. And I guess before we hop in the show real quick, like what are some qualities you think people need? So say like, because this is the space we're in, but I'm sure other people are trying to do the same thing in their different fields. What qualities do you think people need to like be successful and to kind of make it and see their dreams come true?
Oh, you really need consistency, right? So I think a big thing, even for us, is just like continuing to pound the pavement. And one thing that you always tell me is like, it's the trial and error, and it's being okay with the trial and error. Because I think for me, sometimes I'm like, I want to make sure that before I do anything that I'm going in the right direction. But sometimes you got to go in multiple wrong directions to understand that, oh, this is the right one, right? And I think sometimes there can be a fear of doing that because you're just like, oh, if I do this, well, this time is going to be wasted. But it's like, well, time is going to go by regardless. So you might as well figure out, what's wrong before you can understand what's right, Yeah. And then even when you're doing what's right and when everything seems to be going good and you seem to be making that growth, know that it's still a process. You're still going to go through new challenges and things that are on different levels of success. And so I think for me, it's like, not being afraid to pull the trigger, not being afraid to fail first.
Ooh.
So you can fail forward.
Okay,
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
a bar.
So yeah, I think that those are some of the biggest things for me. But what about for you?
For me, I think especially watching this Kanye documentary, and I've been watching this Kobe like motivational thing in the morning because I feel like it helps me get out of bed, like listen to somebody talk as I do like my morning routine. And there's like two real elements I feel like I'm seeing is confidence, and that's that unwavering just belief in yourself, and then discipline. It's like that discipline. I feel like it concretes that confidence. Like if you have that discipline and you have this routine and you know that you're doing the work and you know that you may be failing forward and that you are continue to try stuff, then you can continue to have the belief and the confidence that like, oh, shit gonna be all right. Like we gonna make it at some point.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just kind of like engaging with that, I think has been motivational. And again, coming off my birthday, like having a support system too. I think that's super important. Because sometimes you will get down on yourself. But I'm watching this documentary and it's like I understand why this album is named Donda. And Donda 2, right? Because she had such an impact on his life and she believed in him so much, and like you can see even Kanye before he had anything had a lot of confidence, but you can tell that she instilled that in him and that they kind of had like this synergy together and they really believed in each other and she really believed in him and she continued to feed into him. So he believed in himself when nobody else would. So Yeah, man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think there's something we all can learn from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for those birthday reflections, man. I thank you so much for like allowing us to talk about what progress means, because sometimes in life we see sort of the opposite of that. We see anti-progress. So I remember seeing a few weeks ago now, Dababy and Danny Lay's brother, Brandon Billz, got into an altercation. And for those of you who don't know, basically, Brandon Billz was talking about Dababy once Dababy put Danny Lay on the street, right? And I think for me, everyone's laughing about Brandon Billz getting jumped in the bowling alley and stuff like that, which is fine, I guess. But a big thing for me was, as men, when we think about defending a woman's honor and this, that, and the third, we got to think about what the actual ramifications for the woman is, right? Yeah. Danny Lay didn't get any money from this. Her baby didn't get any support from this. You just got two men who are fighting now. One's injured and one's getting sued, right? It does nothing.
Facts,
you know what I'm saying? So I think that as men, we just got to move a little bit better. And I think it'd be one thing if Dababy was trying to harm Danny Lee physically and Brandon stepped in and got jumped, but it was like, not like I just want to fight you with no, necessary good outcome that's guaranteed to come from it. Like I just want to prove a point. And now you in the hospital, dog. You know what I'm saying? And now that clip of you getting jumped is on the internet forever. Yeah. And maybe you get some money, but how has Danny Lay or her daughter benefited from this? The daughter's gonna have to see all of this when she gets older. You know what I'm saying?
It's embarrassing.
Exactly. So I just think we can do better as men. So
yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think that's such a great point. We have to, again, as men, continue to think about how our actions reflect on our families, right? On other people. It might feel good. Yeah, he might have treated my sister dirty, and if he hasn't put his hands directly on her and caused physical harm, then you just kind of wanting to fight, it's not going to solve that. And I think that that's really what you're getting at. It just creates another host of problems because that is still the father of her child. And they still need to have some type of relationship if this child is going to be successful in the world. And I think in a lot of times we do what feels good, but we don't do what solves the problem. We don't do what is a active solution that may be more adult like I feel like my high school students do that, right? What y'all fighting at a bowling alley for in front of all these people? And I mean, also Danny Lay brother got jumped too, in front of all these people trying to be hard. So yeah, I really like your point because it's if we're not working toward a tangible outcome, a more beneficial outcome, then why?
Yeah. I know that I've been in situations where I'll be with a woman and a dude will do something that maybe do something that's sort of offensive to the woman, but I'll take offense it happened to me because I'm oh, how dare you do that to this person that I'm with while I'm around, and I'm sure that Brandon sort of felt oh, you feel like you can disrespect my sister? Well, that means you disrespected me, and it's no, you weren't kicked out on the street with the child, your sister was, and so whatever you do moving forward, it has to be based on actually supporting and loving her, not trying to rectify or get vengeance on Dababy for getting into your territory and disrespecting you in that way. Because I think that's what a lot of us as brothers do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So y'all got to do better because, like you said, they're all still family. Yeah. That forever, no matter what y'all wanted, all of them are still family. And life is super super short. We actually want to you were talking about Kanye's mom and him being not only so inspired by her, but maybe even so hurt by her, but not by her, but by her passing, and how that the Black community sort of assumes that's impacted how he's moved since then, right?
Absolutely.
And another brother who lost his mom was Tyrese. Since the last time we saw y'all, Tyrese, Sweet Lady Tyrese, Transformers Tyrese, Fast and Furious guy Tyrese, he recently lost his mother, and so we want to give an RIP to his mother. One of California's finest artists, triple threat. Very entertaining, very entertaining. And speaking of which, some of LA's best. The Super Bowl halftime show was crazy. congratulations to LA. You
Absolutely.
know, all the Rams fans and this, that, and the third. The city went up. The city had its parade. I was there more for the commercials. But the Super Bowl halftime show was also super dope. You had Dr. Dre come out, Snoop, 50 Cent, you know, y'all were body shaming him, but but whatever. That's for another day. We had Mary J. Blige, and we had Eminem and Kendrick. I hadn't seen Kendrick in so long.
Yeah.
I love seeing Kendrick. And the biggest parts about that was Kendrick having to not say popo or not mention the police in his song, all right?
Yeah.
And then Eminem kneeling. So I think both of those were like very, very interesting moments in the culture and for the culture. Shout out to Eminem for using his white privilege to say, no, like, fuck what the NFL says. Like, I am going to kneel, and I know y'all don't want me to. Yeah. And Colin Kaepernick might not be here physically, but his spirit is here with us on the stage. So it was something fun to experience. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I thought it was a cool moment too. Like I felt like the moment, especially with Eminem kneeling, it didn't really mean much, but it was a cool symbolic act.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it was out of like I don't know, it wasn't bad. Like I feel like a lot of people were like, "Oh, Eminem, how dare he take a knee?" Blah 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 blah. But it's like we want like our white allies to like take stands and stuff. Like yeah, of course there wasn't much he would lose. Like they weren't gonna be like, "Oh, you take a knee, we're not paying you," because I think we even found out that they were coming out of our pocket for that. So it's like, how can you even tell people that are choosing to perform for you and that are paying their own way that they can't use the popo? Because Dr. Dre didn't say it in his song either.
Right.
So I thought it was weird like that the NFL had those stipulations. But all in all, I think it was a good halftime show. I think it was very black. Yes. It was one of the only halftime shows that I feel like I could sit there and really enjoy. Like it was like I knew the songs. I could really vibe with it. Kendrick is always a performer. I got to see him at Day in Vegas, and it just gave me like every time I watch him, I feel like I'm in a museum or like some type. I feel like it's art. Like it's more than just like music in that sense. Like it's art. It's a performance. It's a whole thing, and I always love that. But yeah, I definitely felt like that halftime show was definitely one for the books, and I was glad that like it was one for the culture, knowing that the NFL still doesn't really rock with black people like that. It was still good to like be able to enjoy that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when I watch Kendrick, like I totally agree with you. It's like you can tell he's very obsessive about like the impact to any of his performances can have. He's very aware of his platform, and he's like, I got to make this special. I got to hit I got to dot all my I's, cross all my T's, like, and it's intense with him, and I love that because I'm just like the amount of power and pressure you put on yourself to have a great performance. It shows itself. I feel like he's like the male version of Beyonce in terms of the hip hop performances. You know
it's a bold statement, but I think that you're right. Of the black male performers that I know, like absolutely.
Right. In terms of the creativity behind it. Now he's not gonna dance and go crazy like Beyonce and that. Now, let's not get it twisted, but in terms of his creativity and like the care that he brings to the performances is mind-blowing.
He be having formations.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And like I think he is a part of our ancestors' wildest dreams. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
And I guess what that sort of brings me to is that this is our last show during Black History Month, right? Shout out to all the black, creators, all the ancestors who have done all of the things. But, the only issue that I'm having with, Black History Month is it performative? You know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Right? Like is Black History Month something that society gives us, once a year during the shortest month of the calendar year, so that they don't necessarily have to, talk about black things and black people throughout the year. So like T, what do you think? Because I just sort of feel like Black History Month in and of itself, while it's great, like knowing that someone invented something 40 some years ago, like that's great for people. But in terms of dealing with the racism that we're dealing with currently today, like I don't know how it sort of mediates and offsets that.
Okay.
So what are some of your thoughts?
So you asking me like, do we need Black History Month?
Yeah.
Is it just performative? Like, can we do more with it?
I think it needs. I guess I'm asking, like, what else are we doing to actually celebrate the legacy and the current state of Black people throughout the year, right? Like, because I think that you look back at history so that you don't commit the same mistakes and atrocities against minoritized and oppressed people.
That's a bar.
But every year we have Black History Month, and every year we see more and more atrocities.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, and I guess what you're getting at is that, like, we have to move past just symbolism, right? Like, we just talked about the NFL, right? It's like there was this great symbolic act, but the institution in which that put on this performance is still problematic.
Right.
So it's like, okay, yeah, pro-Black, but, like, what is it really like in person? So I think that's such a good question. And thinking about it, yeah, you're right. Like, we do need to kind of move past and I think be intentional. I think that's really what it is. We need to be intentional about Black History Month and be intentional about connecting the past to the present. I think it would be even cool if, like, Black History Month, like, imagine if, like, banks during February, like, put on seminars about redlining, right? And maybe their contributions to redlining, whether that be Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or any of these little branches, right? And during that time, what if those banks took time to look at their policies and think about, like, how they may be contributing to gentrification or how they may be contributing to economic inequality? I think that those are ways we could use Black History Month to maybe, like, move forward, because it's like, if not, then it does, just like you said, become this, like, symbolism where we don't really do anything other than wear some cool little pins.
Right.
Got some swag. You feel me? Like, I think our institutions need to be held accountable. Like, I'm in schools right now, and it's like, I couldn't imagine not having Black History Month, because I was working with my students today, and it's like, I have them doing a Black History Month project. I created it, like, using some different things that I've come across and seen at different schools and looking at the internet, because I know how important Black history is. And I know how neglected Black history is. And I know that Carter G. Woodson created Negro History Week to get people talking about Black people's experiences in the world and their contributions to history. And I know if we didn't talk about it and we didn't have this month, people would act like it just doesn't happen. Like, yeah, maybe Lewis Latimer created the, like, filament, but, like, we wouldn't know that, and we would just think that Black people haven't really done much for us historically. Like, I think things like that get lost in the past. Like, Tupac has a quote said, like, if we weren't talking about people killing each other in the streets, they wouldn't take statistics. And, like, we just wouldn't know, and they would just let it keep happening. And I feel like it's that same thing. So I think it's not the month just existing or the thing just existing. Is like, how do we be more intentional about it? Because, like, yeah, otherwise then we'll just have a Black History Month and everybody like, oh, you got your Black History Month, you got your Juneteenth, you good. Why are y'all still complaining?
Yeah, because I think that sometimes when we look at Black History Month, it's almost sort of like how we look at the Civil Rights Movement, where it's like, okay, that look at all the great things that we overcame in the past and this, that, and the third, and, like, now the summation of all that is that we're here today and we're doing great today and everything is over today. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, if I had to choose, and I'm not saying that we should have to choose, but if I have to choose between someone knowing that Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light, right, versus someone knowing that in today's society it's not okay for them to use the N-word, I'm choosing the latter. You know what I'm saying? Not like dead ass, because I just get so tired of, like, we can have Black History Month stuff in classes, but we can't have critical race theory taught. We can't have intergroup dialogue taught, because I feel like to even sit down and know someone's history, that's after you have some type of basic level of respect for them. There's a lot of women's history that I don't know, but I don't go around disrespecting women. And I bet you someone asks, hey, would you rather a guy get catcalled or not know about Susan B. Anthony? Women are gonna say, hey, look, she don't have to know shit about Susan B. Anthony, right?
Let me just fill up at the gas station.
That's what I'm saying. And so I feel like there has to be a way in which we get to the basic level of human decency as we're also learning about the history. Because it's like, if we just focus on the history and we do it in a way that says, we overcame all this stuff and our ancestors are great, and like now we have this utopian society, then we sort of lose the fact that like, and I said this a couple episodes ago, people are still doing racist things today, intentionally and subconsciously, and we have to deal with those conversations first. I need to know that you can respect me on a basic human level, and that you know how society is disrespecting me today, and you can link all the things that are happening today to the things of the past. But I think that we like to glorify the past and pacify it in a sense in order to make things all happy. You know what I'm saying? And I don't like that.
It's like that post-racial society thing after Obama got elected, right?
Right.
It's when you start to look at history in that way, it's like, oh, look how far we've come. We did it. Rather than like, okay, look how far we've come, but look how much more we have to do.
Right.
And it's like, how do we connect that past and that present? So I guess my question for you is like, what does that look like for you? You talked about like some intergroup dialogues, like you're at UCLA now. Like, what would you like to see them do during Black History Month?
I would love to see them incorporate. Well, I mean, and I think for the most part, I know that UCLA already has things like intergroup dialogue courses and this, that, and the third. I know for a fact that because I've taken both classes, I've taken the critical race theory classes.
Is that grad or undergrad?
Grad.
Okay.
So I don't know if they have them on the undergrad level, but I think if they don't, that they should.
Okay.
I think that from a base level, you can have these conversations where you're bringing these people from all these different diasporas, identity groups together, and like, let's understand each other on a human level first. Let's understand where we're coming from first. Let's understand the atrocities that are happening against us and the ones that we contribute to society. And as we're talking about that, and you're talking about your identity, your past is going to come out anyway. And then once we understand each other on that human level, now we can have way more appreciation for, oh, this woman did this back in the day, and oh my gosh, that is so important because look at all the atrocities that women are going through today. Versus starting from back then and being like, women can vote. Great job, society. And it's like, no. Look at how little power women have today. And like, let's look back and see like why that's so disappointing based on what
they fought for.
Exactly. And so I think that that's where we have to start. We have to start by having these very humanistic conversations and knowing each other from that lens first before the history even comes into play. Now, with that being said, I would say too that if you're in a household and your child is of a certain identity, like I'm not going to trust schools to teach my child my Black history. My child's going to know Black history on a different level because these schools can't even get into it like I can get into it as a parent. There are certain terms, certain phrases, certain stories that the schools are never going to get into that like I need to be responsible for teaching my kids too. So I think that also starts at home.
It's a both and thing. Yeah, right. I like that. Because I think about like in my job, like as someone coming in from a nonprofit in a school district, like I have a little bit more like leeway to say what I feel and what I think, and as opposed to like some of the teachers.
Right.
But yeah, like these students aren't learning any of this stuff. And it's like, I even think about like last year when I started to try to do this project, I wasn't extremely intentional. I was just like, it's Black History Month. Y'all gonna learn about some Black people. But I didn't set any real parameters. I just wanted to encourage them, especially because it was on Zoom. I wanted to encourage them to do their own research, and whatever you're interested in, I want you to find a Black person that does that and talk about them, whether that be past or present. And people would just BS the project. And I realized like, because institutions don't care about Black history, like people ultimately won't. Even if you Black, you don't really know about the history. So it's like, I'm gonna just talk about, I don't know, Michael Jordan, or I'm gonna just talk about like just somebody random. So this year I was like, no, you can't do Martin Luther King, you can't do Rosa Parks, you can't do Obama, and you can't talk about the civil rights movement unless you're going into depth. Like if you're talking about Martin Luther King, I need you to talk about more than I Have a Dream. You're talking about Malcolm X, I need you to talk about more than like, oh, he was pro-violence, right? Like I want us to get past these surface level things. And I got to see 2 of my students' presentations today, and somebody talked about Toni Stone. And I didn't know who Toni Stone was. And she was the first woman to played Major League Baseball. Well, it wasn't Major League, it was the Negro Leagues at the time. And she played for, I believe it was like a team in Ohio. And she was the only woman on a man's team. And he talked about how she faced discrimination. And he was like, he was so surprised because he was like, we all black. But he was like, I understood that as a woman, she felt more discrimination. And I was so proud because it's like, I don't even know how he came across her, but he taught the whole class about her. And I think everybody was so like invested and interested. And I that was cool to me. So I think that those are the ways that we can kind of start to like make Black History Month more important, especially if we're trying to do it in schools and stuff. Because then I had them connected. I was like, how does she make you a better person? How does this person you're choosing, like, how do they inform you to be a better person? And what does this say about society now? And I think that those are the questions that need to be asked when we're thinking about, like, how can we make Black History Month more important and more impactful?
Right. I remember having students at the nonprofit that I used to work for, and it was so crazy because they would talk about the violence in neighborhoods, and they would be like, well, yeah, people are just violent or they're just lazy. And it's just like, okay, but if you understood that the government actually created ghettos and violent situations, and like, how would you talk about it? Would you blame your neighbor for the violence, or would you say, oh, this is based on class and proximity, both which were intentionally created by the government to suppress and oppress minoritized peoples, right? And so, but it's like a lot of times that connect isn't forced to be made, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like we can talk about, if you like, let's say you had a project where we were looking at Lorraine Hansberry and we were talking about Raising in the Sun, right? But then now you connect that back to redlining and what was going on back then. And now it's like your Black history is the current, because now you say redlining was going on back then. This is the Black History Project, and how much have neighborhoods actually changed?
Ooh.
Right?
That's beautiful.
Right? And then if you in politics, let's talk about how zones are redistricted or zones are changed up to help certain political parties, Republicans, like have an advantage.
Gerrymandering, yeah.
Everything is so connected.
We have to make those connections, though.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, I definitely don't want to get on here and say Black History Month and the things that we learn are not good or not sufficient, aren't great. But what I am saying is that the fight is not over. And like, the reason that you see these fights happening then is to give us some idea of how to do these fights now. When we're talking about MLK, if you talk about him in a history class, let's just not talk about him being a loving man. Let's talk about his strategies and how he actually disrupted things and how he did it in a particular way, and how he wasn't some soft pieces all passive person. He wasn't that. He wasn't that. He wasn't that. So, and I think that if we have those types of conversations, it takes us to another level. Absolutely. So, because even in today's societies, right, we can talk about the civil rights movement and how, there are seemingly some equal rights for Black people. But then when we think about our lives and how the civil rights movement was to better our lives and to give us more safety and protection, we think about someone like Adante Wright, right? You can still be minding your own business. You can still just be living in your skin, and you still realize that in America, despite civil rights, like, you're not safe. Yeah. So, like, what do you think about everything that's going on with the Dante Wright situation?
Bruh.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah.
So, oh, man. I think that this makes the United States... I get really frustrated. And I think, and I always preface this, like, y'all, I am a prison abolitionist. And what that really means is that, like, I believe that there needs to be a collective effort and working toward the goal of having a society that won't need prisons at some point. I'm not saying that we're not there now, and if we got away from it immediately, like, I think bad things would probably happen. But I think that we have to start to think about how moving away from punishment and moving toward real world solutions that will change the root problem, what that will look like. I'm more invested in figuring out what is spoiling like this fruit than rather than like getting these bad apples, if that makes sense. So I'm really frustrated because the judge in the case, her name is Regina Chu. She called this case highly unusual. And when I first saw that, I was like, huh? Like, it's not
America?
that unusual.
Right, in America?
Like, in LA specifically, I know this didn't happen in LA specifically, but LA, I think they killing somebody every 3-4 days, right? Like, I'm not sure about the statistics with the New York Police Department, but I'm sure it might be even more frequent. So it's not that unusual. So I think that, like, the outcome is actually super frequent. So, like, what is unusual? It's like maybe her feelings about it, but the outcome is not that unusual. But she did go on to compare it to the Derek Chauvin case, and she talked about how Kim Potter, the woman that's found guilty, she was not found guilty of murdering by kneeing on a neck for 9 minutes. And then she goes on to talk about how she didn't intend to kill him, that she intended to grab her taser. And in this situation, grabbing a taser would have been okay, but she actually ended up grabbing her firearm. And because she didn't intend to grab her firearm, that she should be shown leniency. And initially, I want to say that she is wrong. But I in my heart, I can't for sure say that she is wrong, right? I think when you don't intend to do something, there should be some leniency involved, right? Like, the intent to kill somebody and then actually doing it, like, there is a gap, right? But I think that only extends so far. People that look like you and I don't often receive that.
Yeah.
And that is more than anything what I want. Like, I remember when this happened with, I think his name was Botan Jean, the man that was killed in Texas, when that the white police officer
Came into his house
and killed him and said she thought it was hers. And the judge came over and gave her a hug and coddled her, and I think it was a black judge too, and really showed her, like, human decency and understood her pain. And I know Black America was up in arms and livid. And I think more than anything, it's not because that person may not have deserved that, it's because we're not shown that. So how dare you show somebody else that if we never get to feel that way? And someone that I used to know said something that really, like, sticks with me to this day. She said that she hopes her brother, she was upset because she said she hopes her brother, who is dealing with some police stuff, is shown that leniency. And that made me really think it's not that, like, people don't deserve this, because people make mistakes. It's that, like, when people look like us, they don't actually get that treatment. It's her brother probably got the max that he could get, because when they see him, they see a nigga, right?
Right.
They see somebody that, like, don't deserve to be in society, that doesn't have any room to make mistakes like that, right? But if you're a white woman, if you're a white man, and, like, everything in your life is pointed to you doing the right things and being in the right places, and she could have been anybody. She could have been a nurse. She could have been anything. But I think the judge points out, like, oh, she chose to be a police officer, and this is a hard job, and she had to make a tough call, and that's why this happened. That's what becomes frustrating, right? It's like, we're never shown that. And I think that more than anything, that's the problem with our justice system, that there's a double standard to it. And I think that that's what upsets me the most, because it's like, we understand through these things what the judges are saying, like, how life could be, right? But it's not like that for us. That's not our reality. And I think more than anything, that's what frustrates me.
I feel you, because you know, you speak to this idea that, like, you know, white folks get the benefit of the doubt, and it's a white woman using her tears, or people saying, you know, young white men, especially younger white men, and being like, that could be my son, like, he's not that bad of a kid, and if he is, I was horrible too, so let's let him off. And it's very disheartening, because for me, it's like, it's just too much of a coincidence for me, because here's the thing, like, I have some cop friends, and you know that in a life and death situation, you need to know whether you grab for your taser or your gun. Absolutely. And I'm not even talking about for the person you're addressing. It's more of a so for that police officer's safety. If someone's shooting at you, you need to know whether you're getting your gun or your taser.
Absolutely.
And you should be thoroughly trained in that. And so it just seems like just a little bit too much of a coincidence that someone who's trained, who's been thoroughly trained, or I hope was thoroughly trained, would grab the lethal weapon when dealing with this black man. I I can't buy it, but I think America does give white folks the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And like you said, like we just wish we could get it, or either we get it or no one gets it, right? Like, and I think in a more humanistic way, people should get it. The majority of society should get it, but it's just too much of a coincidence for me, dog.
No,
like,
you're right because what I believe is that like the lethal weapon is crossbody. Like you have to unholster it and pull it across, right? So it's like that should tell you all you need to know, right? Like that you are grabbing for the wrong thing, and no matter how much pressure you're under, like that's what you should be trained for. And I think that again, like that's what's frustrating. But again, we talked about this back when Derek Chauvin was tried, right? And that the whole world was watching and we were holding our breath, hoping that he was found guilty.
Right.
I knew that this would skew how we looked at other cases, because for something to be that clear cut that the whole world watched, and that there were still questions like that, the fact that it wasn't open and shut, and that like this man wasn't thrown in jail immediately, like this man got a whole due process, and we still had to pray that this man was found guilty. Like her comment shows that like if you're not intentionally killing somebody in front of the world, then you're gonna get the benefit of the doubt because you're not Derek Chauvin. Because you can't explain away Derek Chauvin. Like that's just evil, right?
Right.
So if you're not just plain out evil, then it's like as a police officer, especially as a white police officer, you're gonna get the benefit of the doubt. And I think that enrages me.
Yeah, it's like and I think it's funny. Like I appreciate you sort of explaining the logistics of pulling out the firearm, right? Because for me, the second thought for her wasn't whether it was a taser or a gun. It was whether she saw Dante as a human or a dangerous animal.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I know for me, if I see a wild bear and I have a gun or a taser, and the bear's running towards me, I'm shooting the bear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Peter. I'm shooting at the bear, the lion, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I think that what happens, especially with Black folks, is that we're not seen as humans. So any type of response or reaction, we're looked at as savage beasts who would kill it, could kill at any moment. And in that case, and here's what's the wild part, right? Judges, juries, they're all in alignment with that. So it's like, oh, you were at risk because that Black person you killed wasn't a human, it was a savage beast. If a lion comes in here right now and I have a gun or a taser, it's not going to be a second thought. Lions are my favorite animals. I'm bam, because I see it as a threat. It could be sitting down in this room and I might still. Yeah. Because at any time I think it could. It's a tiger, yeah. Right. If it's a tiger, lions, tigers, bears. But that's how Black people are looked at. We don't get the humanistic thing. So like that, if a white woman walks in and she thinks both of them Jeen is a lion in her spot, it makes sense. You shot it. You shot it. You shot it. Because that's how you see us, savage beast. Yeah. And now when you're in the court, I felt scared. I just didn't know. Because it was a beast. And when society looks at you as a beast, they accidentally killed an animal. Yeah. It's okay.
It's like I would have did the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what's really being said.
Yeah.
And I think that this goes back to what you were saying about Black History Month, right? It's like, yeah, I'm sure that she know civil rights and she know Martin Luther King and little black boys and little black girls and equality and all that, right? But like, if you still can't see a Black person, especially at your lowest, at your most vulnerable as a person, then this shit's always gonna happen. It's gonna continue to repeat because we aren't continuing to have these conversations. I don't know her proximity to Black people, but the fact that like she couldn't have a second thought, because what was the worst thing that was gonna happen? He was gonna run off, like he was gonna speed off. Cool, like you got his license plate. Your license plate is connected to an address. You gonna find him at some point.
Right.
It wasn't a life or death scenario, but in that instance, it was, and she was the executioner.
Yeah, and I think she even like entraps herself by saying like, I thought it was gonna be a taser situation. Like I meant to go for my taser. So it already shows that in her mindset, she allegedly didn't think it was a life and death situation either. But it's like when these thoughts come out of how you really see people, then it's sort of like, okay, like, nah, I meant to reach for it because I have to subdue the beast.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we're looking at Black History Month and we're looking at all these incredible Black people and society still sees them as, oh, those are the beasts that ended up doing something positive. That beast who, you know, did blood transfusion, that beast who created the super soaker, that beast who like helped people land on the moon. Like, oh, that was a nice beast. Then all of it's sort of blown. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. So yeah, I just think that this situation is extremely frustrating, and we have to figure out some way to kind of move past this as a society, or we'll just continue to kind of cycle.
absolutely.
We'll continue to cycle.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, there has to be something else that's done at some point, right? And so I think that that's what we need, you know, our audience to remember. And we need to have these more dynamic conversations. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So, look, I want to end it on just a semi more happier note, man. How was your Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day was very like low key this
Okay.
year. It was very low key. We kind of did it big last year, but I think this year we kind of did it big for our birthdays. Like my birthday is 4 days before Valentine's Day. My girlfriend's birthday is 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. For her birthday, we went to Disneyland. We had a great time. For my birthday, there was a weekend of events, like from Thursday through Sunday. So I think at that point I was just exhausted. I think Valentine's Day was on a Monday.
Yeah.
So I think we watched Brown Sugar. I had never seen Brown Sugar before.
Oh, man.
I know.
T.
Look, don't take my black card.
T.
Please don't take my black card.
T.
I know, bro. I know. I don't watch movies like that. That's what I'm learning about myself as I've gotten older. I don't watch movies like that. So I really did. I loved it. I have a love for Sanaa Lathan. So it was good. I think we got some food. She also had a lot of work that day too, so we just kind of spent the night together. Yeah, watched some movies, got some food. I got her some flowers, you know, support the local people. So I worked down in South Central, and there was a bunch of different like venue or vendors and things like that, and there was like an actual like kind of like a florist shop just on the side of the road, and I walked through like the whole street and they had different bouquets and stuff, and I was like, oh, this one's it. So yeah, just something low key. But what about you?
Well, you know, I think this year was really interesting because I think Valentine's Day was a much bigger mainstream thing. So for those of you who don't know, Valentine's Day is when women get together and they celebrate one another, because sometimes the dating pool can be crazy out here. And like the love of friends can be, you know, more consistent and in some cases more powerful than these romantic relationships. And it made me think like, oh, like, do dudes have this like this avenue, you know what I'm saying, to do that? So like next year I might actually get some of the brothers together and, you know, just have something just so people know, hey, you love, man, we got your back, we the homies, this, that, and the third. Because I don't think that we as men like necessarily have that space, and sometimes we don't necessarily want to have that space, so we're hesitant to have that space. But you know what, man? As Valentine's Day turned in, like, you know, I was having a good time just being scallopy out here. And I think the funny thing though is that the older I get, you know, there's been so much love around me. So many of my friends have been getting engaged. There's so many different weddings that I'm going to be going to, and you know, I'm at a point in my life where I feel like, you know, I can see myself settling down. I can see the single life sort of starting to dissipate for me as I'm moving closer to my goals, to the end of my program. It's just love has always happened for me in transitions, right? A lot of my breakups have happened during, you know, when I was about to graduate, when they were about to graduate. And I think as a man who has a lot to offer, who's young, single, like emotionally intelligent, I think for us, it can be like, oh, well, there are all these great women out here and like, you can really do this forever. And I think it's interesting when you start to get to the point where it's just like, oh, I'm good. Not because I'm being forced, not because of all the things that are happening with friends around me, but like, no, I'm good. Like I want to be with someone great. And I'm tired of having all these different situationships with all these people that I could be with. And like, it's getting tiresome.
Yeah.
But it's like taking that time. It's been 5 years since my last relationship, and I think I'm finally getting to a point where it's just like, I'm tired, man. I'm tired. I'm tired.
Welcome,
so
join the life.
Yeah, man. So it might be coming soon. I think that this Valentine's Day in particular, I just realized how exhausted I was and how ready I think I am to, transition to like other steps. So, for anyone I've engaged with, you know who you are. So but it was a good reflective day for sure.
I love that. Well, keep us updated. We're excited for this new revelation. Valentine's Day is a beautiful day to kind of reflect on love in your life, whether that be friendships, romantic relationships. But I love that you shared that, right? It's a way to reflect on just relationships in general. And I really want to hear about the thing next year. So please call me up, because I think that's the thing that dudes don't do. I feel like my male friends don't really say love you. Like we don't really show love. We show love in our actions, but we don't really express it. But I think it's also very healthy to affirm love in that way.
Right, absolutely. And then I guess my final thing too is, as we leave Valentine's Day, as we're transitioning out of Black History Month, just remembering to love yourself.
And love Black people.
Right. Because the world will tell you horrible things about both, about yourself, about Black people. Like it's the world is very anti, and you have to fight for your peace and live in that peace unapologetically. And I think that's what I've learned too, not to create chaos for myself or for others. Right. So T, I think that's about it. It for me, man. You want to take us out?
Yes, I just realized that we didn't do our land acknowledgments. This is the land of the Gabrielino and the Tongva. This is stolen land. This is colonized land, and we will always, always, always pay those respects. And if we ever forget, please put us on the spot. And our light roast was the Judge in the Kim Potter decision. But yeah, as we close out, we want to say keep the coffee black. All right, y'all. Peace, and we will catch y'all soon.